Sleepers Media is back, not Enterprises. I got the name right, Carter Elliott, Greg Waddell. It's Tuesday, June 13th, around lunchtime here. And we're going to talk some transfer recruits who may or may not be transferring, starting with Kentucky's Antonio Reeves, widely considered a lock to enter the portal no sooner than a week ago. Now there's some ominous reports, out of Lexington that he may be announcing very soon that he is planning to return to Kentucky next season. He has never formally put his name in the portal, but this is a messy recruitment, man. There was actual evidence that he's taking classes at Illinois State. Supposedly he was enrolled in 3 classes specifically to graduate from Illinois State so that he could be a grad transfer in the portal. I don't know why he would take those classes if he's just going to return to Kentucky. And the big rumor here, Cart, is that somebody on the Kentucky staff found a loophole that says he cannot transfer if he is entering as a graduate from a school that is not Kentucky while he is on the Kentucky basketball roster. Wild situation, pretty unprecedented situation. If you weren't taking notes, probably sounds really messy with what I just laid out. But all that said, Cart, at this point, do you expect Antonio Reeves to hit the portal, yes or no?
No, I don't think so. I think at this point, the loophole that they found, at least everything that I've seen, to do a too long, don't read, whatever that, little acronym is, Cal's keeping him hostage. He is. They found, it's like, either you can come back and play for us or you're not going to be eligible because they found a loophole in the system. And look, at this point, can you really get upset at Cal? I mean, you should know the rules. You got to find stuff like that out. And with the state that Kentucky basketball is currently in, sometimes you got to pull loopholes to keep players because it's nasty times right now. They got Jerome Tang tweeting gifts out, dancing on Calipari's grave as they get Arthur Kaluma to commit. So shit, sometimes you gotta pull out the loopholes, read the fine print if you want to, make some things happen.
Yeah, what did Jerome Tang say after he beat him in the NCAA tournament? We just got more dudes than them.
We just got more dudes, and then proceeded to recruit more dudes than him.
He's still got more dudes than them. One of the more fascinating things of this offseason has been Cal's apparent failures in playing the portal in the NIL era. Like, of all people, if you would have told me 5 years ago the sport was going to break out into a pay-for-play operation where blue bloods can just go get any players in the country they want with no repercussion, I would have said Kentucky's going to win 5 national championships. Like, Cal would just dominate that world. Instead, he's had some good transfers come in. The teams have been fine by all accounts. They have not had NCAA tournament success, but this offseason has just been a disaster, dude. He struck out on every Plan A target. Reeves publicly rumbling that he wants to leave and then hanging over the roster for a whole month leading up to this has been really messy. And look, they got 8 scholarship players for next season right now that are formally signed up. None of them have played in college before at all. This is his youngest roster ever.
And you want to know who their vet's going to be? A guy who's been trying to take classes at Illinois State so he can leave. That's their vet. That's their vet. That's the older guy they're looking up to on the team. That's a recipe. It's a recipe for disaster in general. When usually in today's day and age, you have that many freshmen playing that many major minutes, but also when the leaders on the team don't even want to be there, it's scary, scary hours.
I think that's probably going to just end up being more toxic than if he just left, though, right?
Yeah.
Antonio Reeves isn't a guy. He's a good player. Don't get me wrong. Michigan and Illinois are both after him if he does hit the portal, and he would be a huge needle moving piece for both teams. But he's not a guy you just throw on a Kentucky roster with 8 freshmen and suddenly they go from NCAA tournament team to national title team. And that would be if his mentals were in the right place. If his mentals are I don't even want to be here, I could see that going wrong in so many different ways. So, I think you summarized it well. It really is Cal is holding this kid hostage. Now, it's a little less toxic for me than the Mark Adams, Terrence Shannon situation for a couple years ago, because Mark Adams essentially could have signed off and said, you can leave. This one is more there's a rule. It's a rarely used rule, and it might be a little gray area rule, but there is a rule, and we're just making you aware of the rule. We're not preventing you from leaving. We're just hey, we found this rule and you might have to come back. If I'm Reeves though, don't I just go pro rather than going back to, like, if it's really true that he can't leave Kentucky,
Yeah,
don't you just play overseas somewhere?
yeah, 100%. So if anything, the only thing this is doing is just they don't want to see Reeves in another college uniform. It's either it's basically you go pro, or you're not playing college basketball anymore.
Yeah, it's a shame because, like I said, Illinois and Michigan were after him. There were other schools that were after him. If he landed on one of those two teams, Cart, he'd be a really good piece, right? Like, which I know you're a Michigan State fan, clearly. Which fit would you think is better for Reeves if he did hit the portal and he was choosing between Michigan or Illinois? Which would be a better
Probably
spot?
Michigan.
You think so?
Probably Michigan, because I mean, there's a couple factors. There's some like real big rumblings that there's like a disconnect between like the grassroots Chicago high school like scene and actually the University of Illinois in Underwood. And like I guess Reeves has connections to kind of that like, you know, Mac Irvin kind of system over there. So he'd have a chance to play Illinois once or twice a year. He wouldn't have to play behind guys like Terrence Shannon. There's a plethora of minutes and shots available at the two for the University of Michigan, at least more so than Illinois. But also, I could see a world where he would go to Illinois because that would be a better actual team. Like
Yeah.
he has more of a chance to win, you know, Big Ten or go farther in the NCAA tournament in the Illinois situation. So it's really what kind of he wants. To me, it seems like he might go to Illinois only because he's a guy who came from Illinois State. He went to Kentucky because he wanted to play on the big stage and wanted to win.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't work out like that. Illinois would probably be a better situation to win, more shots, attempts, maybe a bigger stage to show off his game for the next level. At Michigan, though, probably.
I do want to just say, I think if he went to Michigan and Illinois' roster remained what it is right now, Michigan would be better than Illinois if they had Reeves. Now, if he went to Illinois, like obviously Illinois is better, but
I'm not getting there on that.
I think you're really underestimating like the holes in Illinois' roster right now. Like they did not get a point guard. Jeremiah Williams may not be eligible next season, and Justin Harmon may not show up in Champaign. So, like, it just is what it is. Like, and if that's the case, like, I mean, you saw the team last year. They had Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins and a lot more dudes, and they were not that good of a team. So I'm not seeing the path to
other factors on that team, though.
I'm not seeing the path to like true contender here unless they get a guy like Reeves. Then I'm in on that. But I do think like Reeves is a guy wherever he goes. I think he elevates you from middle of the pack to like one of the better teams in your conference, and I think that would include Michigan in that list. Like if they roll out Reeves, Kamwa, Burnett, Reed, Doug, I think that's a top 5-ish team in the Big Ten next year, depending on who guys are. But man, Reeves was like part of this is that Reeves can score 20 points a game like every single night. Like that's how good he was for Kentucky down the stretch. So he would fill a lot of holes for both teams. And yeah, if I'm Reeves, back to the question I asked you of like where would I go between Michigan and Illinois? I think the pitches are essentially come take Matthew Meyer's role versus come take Kobe Buffkin's role. I think if I'm Reeves, I take the Kobe Buffkin role over the Matthew Meyer role. But
definitely.
But who knows? We'll see. Probably all a meaningless conversation because he's probably locked in handcuffs in Lexington, Kentucky at Rupp Arena.
Which kind of sucks because he would make it would make the Big Ten even more interesting if a player like Reeves was to be added to a team in the Big Ten. Like that, like you said, it improves both teams.
Yeah. I would ask you,
which makes the conference better.
I would ask you where 1 to 5 Antonio Reeves would be as far as best player on Michigan State's roster, but I don't want to get chirped in the comments section.
This is always a question for me. Antonio,
no, I'm not asking it. I don't want the answer. I don't want to get chirped.
You don't?
I don't want to get chirped in the comment section again. Okay. I would.
Because what did I say with Olivier? Did I have him 5th?
You had Kamwa 5th because you think Malik Hall is better than Kamwa. And guess what? The YouTube comments agree with you. So let's move on. Thank you, Cart. Thanks, John Calipari, for doing something hilarious that we got to talk about it. And Illinois fans, sorry, I said Michigan with Reeves would be better than your team.